We're continuing our theme for this month on intentional generosity. Intentional generosity is a proactive practice of giving of our time, our money, and our resources to create a deliberate life of service. One resource that we all have available to us is love. We're created in the image of Spirit, and Spirit is pure love. The talk today is titled, "What is love calling you to do?" Now, I'm not talking about love here being a fleeting emotion. Emotions change over time. One day you may feel deep emotional love for someone, and then later, sometimes even later that same day, they're on your last nerve. So I'm not talking about this kind of emotional feeling of love. I'm talking about love as a verb, a conscious daily choice for intentional behavior. Remember, our theme for this year is intentional living. So this month we're looking at how can we be generous in our living, and how can we be generous in sharing love with ourselves. Because remember, in Unity, we always say life begins on the inside and then is lived out. So we must love ourselves, and then we can love others around us. And I'm talking about love being a verb, being intentional actions, choices that we make, like choosing kindness, choosing compassion, supporting a friend or a partner in a way that they want to be supported, and showing up even on those days that we don't feel inclined to do so. Some days we may not feel like being kind or compassionate to people, but we're called to show love in the world. If that's truly our calling, then we don't get days off from that. Darn it. But you know, how we show up as love can be different from day to day. When we're not feeling like a full energy tank of love, there's still other things we can do to show love. Love in action requires maturity. It requires emotional intelligence. And it requires a commitment to nurturing relationships through consistent, tangible efforts, rather than relying solely on those feelings. Author Bell Hooks says, "Love in action is never simply a feeling." And behavioral psychology talks about we don't control our feelings directly, but we do control our actions. So what is love calling us to do? Love has the power to transform us each day as we turn our attention to it. I'm going to say the obvious here. God is love, and love is God. So what is God calling you to do? What is love calling you to do? My first point for today is that love is a verb. It means making conscious choices, consciously choosing actions of love, not the emotion of love, which can be fleeting. If you've lived with someone for many years, I bet you could tell us about how your love has changed over time. Tom and I have been together for 42 years this past week, and I love him more today than I loved him 42 years ago. It's a different love. Same two people, same relationship, but our love has grown and evolved over time. It's deeper, it's more supportive, and I dare say it's more significant now than what it was in the beginning. The evolution has occurred because we have chosen actions of love, not just going with a feeling of love. What actions are you willing to do to make your life and the life of others around you better. I found a little story that I enjoyed. It says following a naval battle between Athens and Sparta, many ships were sinking. Hundreds of sailors were in the sea. They were floundering there. One of them was praying very loudly to the goddess Athena, "Save me, please save me." But he was obviously drowning. A shipmate, clinging to a piece of wreckage, saw the sailor and recognized his plight. And he yelled to him, "Pray to Athena, but move your arms too." Sometimes we need to move our arms. So the second point is that love involves concrete behaviors. We don't just sit in meditation all day. We have to get up and do things. I'm reminded of the monks. And even when they're in the monastery, they have to cook, they have to clean, they have other jobs to do. Yes, they spend a lot of time in meditation and prayer, but they're also moving their arms. They're doing actions. And we get to do the actions of love. Sometimes it's just moving our arms. Small acts of love can help us refocus our mind from being self-centered to being purpose-centered. What is your purpose in life? What are you here to do and to share with the world? A personal example of love in action. It was a day in our minds. December 13th, 2013. Tom, my husband, had a Whipple procedure. It's a major 6+ hour surgery for pancreatic cancer. Now, at the time, there was only a 5% survival rate for pancreatic cancer. Today, it's improved to a whopping 13% survival rate. We were both kind of in shock and brain fog, I guess, with this diagnosis and the upcoming surgery. The good news is Tom is cancer-free, and he's 12+ years past that surgery. Most of his doctors call him a miracle. They just can't believe it. Now, I tell you this story to illustrate that even when the two of us wanted to retreat into our own world, to be away from everybody else, I don't need to be love here. Look at what's going on with me, poor him. There were still opportunities to be love with the people in the surgery waiting room as I sat there for over 7 hours. The people in ICU and the other departments in the hospital that we interact with, friends that came to visit, even the housekeeping lady that came in every day to clean his room. There were ways that we could show love, show kindness and compassion, and not just be self-centered. You know I was praying, I hope, but I was also moving my arms. There were things I could do to show him I loved him and to show others love during this time. When we went home from the hospital, he came home with, I forget now if it was 4 or 5 different drainage tubes, dressings, a feeding tube that I had to manage to keep him nourished. I was up with him at night when he was sick from chemotherapy or in pain from radiation, holding his head when he was vomiting, giving him a wet washcloth, changing the sheets in the middle of the night when he was profusely sweating. These are not major things, small actions, but they show love. They show compassion. So what are you willing to do for yourself and for others? Today, some of those things are simple. Maybe it's making coffee for yourself or someone else. Maybe it's turning off the coffee pot and rinsing it out when it's done. Stopping to listen to someone who wants to share something with you. Maybe it's being mindful that when you go into a meeting, you shut your cell phone off so that you don't have all the deep dings and beeps and music that plays that distracts from the meeting. Maybe it's holding open a door as you're going into a room or coming out of a room. Saying thank you to people. Offering a hand or an arm to someone who needs an extra balance point. Giving a smile to people. You know the thing, if you don't have a smile, I'll give you one of mine. I love that one. The list goes on and on and on. There's lots of activities here that constitute love in action when they're done with a loving intention. If you're grumbling when you do it, it's not really love in action. 1 Corinthians 16 verse 14 says, "Let all that you do be done in love." Now I want to be clear that we don't need to accept abuse disguised as love. Bell Hooks again says love and abuse cannot coexist. So love doesn't call us to be a doormat for the world, but to take conscious, courageous action. Another story I found on mindful action here. There was a Western Buddhist woman who was in India studying with her teacher. She was riding in a rickshaw-type carriage through the city with another woman, and they were attacked by a man. In the end, the attacker just scared them both. But when they got to the teacher, this Buddhist woman told the teacher all about the attack and how it really frightened her. But she said, "What should I have done? What would have been the appropriate Buddhist response?" The teacher said, very simply, "You should have very mindfully and with great compassion whacked the attacker over the head with your umbrella." You see, we don't have to be a doormat and take abuse. We need to love ourselves enough that we can love others also. In a spiritual community, consider what love in action might mean. What is love calling you to do to nurture and build relationships and meaningful conversations with people? One of the things, spoiler alert here, that I want to share with you is we're in the planning stages of revamping the Heart and Hands program here at Unity of East Louisville. We'll be looking for volunteers that are willing to share their gifts of doing love and service for our own spiritual community. There's many ways that you can be of service. Maybe your gift is sending cards to people. Maybe you would like to make phone calls to check in with people. Maybe your gift is preparing a meal. Or maybe your gift is delivering a meal to someone. Maybe it's doing a load of laundry for somebody who's not able to get up and do that. Maybe it's changing smoke detector batteries. I've been doing that this week. The possibilities are endless. So I invite you to prepare yourself to live and to give generously to your spiritual community by offering gifts of service. Now, Tracy and I are the new co-leaders of this project, so we'll be getting more information to you in the near future. We have to put some parameters around what we're going to do and how we do it. But it will be concrete actions that you can do as love to share with your community. And my third point for today is love requires commitment. Are you willing to be committed to doing acts of love? I get a monthly newsletter every month from Reverend Dr. Martha Creek. I imagine several of you do as well. This month she had stories of inspiration in her newsletter that she called heroes. I called them examples of being committed to love in action. One of the stories was about Jackson Farmer, I believe a 9-year-old boy. She said he had a huge smile and he was born without a left hand. Jackson's medical team was not able to fit him with a hand prosthesis. They tried, but nothing really worked for him. He had a teacher in his school, Mr. Scott Johnson, who saw Jackson and what he was going through and thought, I can make his life better. So he talked to medical personnel, he researched prosthesis, he built prototype. He printed it on the school's 3D printer of a hand for Jackson. It fit Jackson perfectly, and it really improved the child's life. To have a gift, you have to have a giver and a receiver. So I ask you, what are you willing to give? And what are you willing to receive? You know those people that say, oh, no, I don't need anything. Well, we're denying people the blessing of giving, and we're denying ourselves the blessing of receiving. Another story she talked about was a man she'd met in the hospital. His name was Rick, so I perked up. Rick had tongue cancer in 2010 to 2012, and part of his treatment was to remove his tongue. I have a friend that had tongue cancer, but she only had part of her tongue removed. He had his entire tongue removed. So he said he didn't say, he let them know he could not speak or eat. Evidently, he had worked at this hospital before, and so now he stands by the elevator to communicate love to people coming into the hospital. He does it all non-verbally. Now he has a sign beside him that says, Rick the elevator guy, tongue cancer, 2010 to 2012. Never smoked, because you know some people are going to be asking or judging. He says, I cannot speak. And then in big letters, life is still good. He's choosing to be positive, sharing a little of God's love this year. And then he said no tips, because he wasn't looking for a handout from people. And I can hear you fine, because you know people think if you can't speak, you can't hear. He kind of covered all bases, hadn't he? Dr. Martha says, his purpose is to share loving kindness without a single spoken word, not as a victim of circumstance, but as a conduit of love. Are we willing to be love in action in whatever way Spirit calls us to be? Maybe it's the whisper. Maybe it's the conduit of love. Love also can take us out of our comfort zone. So my final story here is about a college boy named John. John went to this university, and I went to college with a kid like this. He was his own person, never wore shoes, always wore blue jeans, a shirt with holes in it, and had wild hair. Now, he decided to go to this rather conservative church right across the street from the university. The church had discussed about how could they have a relationship here with the university, outreach to the students, but they never really came up with anything. So John walks into the service, and it had already started. He starts walking down the aisle, and the closer he gets to the front, he realizes all of the seats are filled. There's no place for him to sit. So when he gets to the front, he just sits right down on the floor in the middle of the aisle. Well, this had never been done at this conservative church, so the tension really started to build. Then one of the ushers was in his 80s, silver gray hair, a three-piece suit, and a pocket watch. Do you have an image here? He was very elegant, very dignified. He starts walking from the back of the church, and I dare say their church must have been bigger than this one. He's walking down the aisle, and everybody becomes silent. They're watching what this guy is going to do, and they're thinking this man is going to kick this kid out. You can't sit on the floor. Took a long time for him to walk with his cane all the way down the aisle. When he got to the front, this usher dropped his cane on the floor and very, very cautiously lowered himself down and sat next to John on the floor so he wouldn't be in the service alone. Sometimes love in action means we have to stretch into doing things that we've never done before. So your homework for this week, if you decide to participate, is to spend some time in the silence, asking Spirit, how can I be love in action today? Just listen. Notice as thoughts move through you. Keep breathing and stay open to all that Spirit has to reveal to you. I want to leave you with a quote to contemplate as well. This is from a minister friend of mine, Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson. And Dr. Ray says, whatever we have that we call our gifts, our talents, our skills, our blessings, we're called to bring that to the world. We're called to be the living embodiment of our spiritual magnificence and to live it out loud, not hide it under a bushel. So I hope you're open to new ways that you can embody your spiritual magnificence, that you can be love in action both for yourself and for others around you and in your spiritual community. I look forward to observing the ways we each choose to be love in action here. This week, many people will be celebrating Valentine's Day. I heard a new word this week, learned it, even saw a card for it called Galentine. This is where the single ladies get together and support one another. They can go to dinner, they can have, now, you have men doing that, and people are really going to raise an eyebrow. But you have 3 or 4 women get together and do this, it's perfectly fine. Go for it. Galentine. Hadn't heard that one before. Be love in action, whatever that looks like to you. I love you, I see you, I bless you, and I behold the Christ in you. Namaste.